Federal law enforcement are calling it the biggest drug ring takedown in our region in recent memory. The U.S. Department of Justice announced the takedown of 2 interrelated drug rings after a wiretap investigation led to the indictment of more than a dozen people. Here's what Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes had to say about the arrest during a news conference yesterday.
These criminals did the worst kind of damage to our community. They preyed on some of our most vulnerable, the homeless, the drug addicted, people who, in fact, deserve our compassion.
Steve is in the ARC Lounge this morning with Assistant U.S. Attorney Casey Conzatti to talk more about this case.
Yeah, Casey, thank you so much for coming in. And my understanding is this kind of focused on the CID neighborhood of Seattle, right?
It did.
Talk about the complexity of this case and when it began and what prompted it to begin.
Of course. So this began probably back in November of 2023 when detectives with the SPD in the Narcotics Division specifically realized that there was a problem in the CID. They realized that there was a lot of drug trafficking, which leads to additional crimes, obviously, retail theft and other stuff. And they wanted to do something more than just the typical drug bust that you hear about. So they started an investigation into a number of different individuals who were dealing in that area and then continued to expand upon it. We were able to use wiretaps, search warrants, and a bunch of other law enforcement abilities to kind of track that to continue working our way up until we got to the last round of indictments that were just announced.
And talk about the wiretapping. How does that help in a particular investigation? I don't know if you can talk specifically about this one or not, but what types of information can you get from using wiretapping to put a case together?
So it's basically being able to hear what's actually going on with the targets of our investigation.
Okay.
We're able to intercept both electronic communications as well as voice communications about what they're planning, where they're going, if they're going to go distribute narcotics, if they're going to go pick up narcotics, how much they're paying for them, and it gives us a broader overview of the organization as a whole.
Are there limitations on how that evidence can be used at trial, for instance?
So you do have to have authorization, so you have to go to a specific judge within the district court who will review to make sure that we have enough probable cause as well as the necessity to get a wiretap. In order to do that, we lay out the affidavit and we explain why we want to wiretap individuals. And then we have a 30-day limit or at the most, but it's also as long as we are still getting information and we're learning about the organization as a whole.
Okay, let's talk specifically about what these 14 people are accused of. And it's our understanding that 11 are currently in custody, 3 still on the run this morning, right? And this spans several states, so not just Washington, but Oregon and California as well. What are they accused of?
So they are accused of trafficking in narcotics, basically bringing controlled substances. We seized fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin from these individuals, and basically what they would do is they would go down to California in the Los Angeles area. They would have large quantities of narcotics that they would purchase down there, and then they would bring them back up into the Oregon and Washington area to then further redistribute them. So we had the individuals who were buying them and bringing them up, as well as other redistributors who were buying kind of smaller quantities and then putting them out into the community at the smaller level that you would see.
I think one of the comments that struck me during the news conference with the police chief yesterday and the FBI is specifically when you're talking about the amount of fentanyl that was seized here, enough to kill everybody in the city of Seattle, I think he said twice.
Yes.
Which, I mean, just a huge amount of narcotics we're talking about here.
It is an extremely large quantity of narcotics. I believe we ended up with about 300,000 fentanyl pills, as well as, I want to say about 10 to 15 kilograms of fentanyl powder, which comes out to about 30 to 40 pounds of fentanyl powder as well. So
put that in perspective in terms of cases you've worked on before.
So I have worked on it's what I do. I do a lot of larger narcotics investigations, but it is quite large. They go for those kilograms of fentanyl would go for probably about $15,000 to $20,000 per kilogram.
Wow.
And one of the big things that we were noticing is that it was probably one of the largest cocaine seizures that I've actually seen during my career as an AUSA. We seized probably about 118 kilograms of cocaine as well, which comes out to, again, about $15,000 per kilogram of cocaine.
Just speaks to the complexity of this case, for sure. I know that 3 of the people charged in this drug bust were here without legal status. What's kind of the next step here?
So we have, I actually believe that it was 4
4
individuals who have already previously been deported,
Okay.
who were here without legal status. We're still looking into a number of the other individuals that are possibly also here without legal status. We'll continue our investigation into that aspect of it. We're working closely with HSI to determine whether people are here with legal status or without legal status as the case continues.
Do we have any more information about why this particular area of Seattle was targeted, the CID, and you know, how these folks were chosen?
From the investigation standpoint?
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was, it ended up being, in the beginning, so back in January, we actually indicted about 6 other individuals who were targeting that area pretty aggressively. There were a number of calls that were talking about, snatching people, about violence, a number of firearms that were discussed during that initial wiretap, and it just kind of spanned from there because there was an overlap between the 2 different groups. And so that first group had a large presence in the International District, and so it started there with the violence and the drug trafficking, and then just kind of continued the investigation onward as we continued to develop more information about the groups.
Can you speak to the impact that this investigation might have on the drug problem as a whole? I mean, this is as we were just talking about a couple moments ago, this is a huge amount of drugs, but speak to the impact that this could potentially have long term.
Yeah, well, it's definitely removing all of those drugs off of the street so that they can't be trafficked to the people who are the most vulnerable people that we have. So the people who are addicted to controlled substances. It also, we know that the people who are addicted and the people who are trying to get money are also committing additional crimes at some points. And so I know that there's a large theft problem over in the International District, so we're hoping that this might help that as well, and just hoping to kind of clean up and remove those drugs from the community.
And obviously, in terms of next steps, finding the other 3
Yes.
that are still on the run, what
Right.
else can you pass along about next steps here?
Well, we're continuing on trying to make sure that we have all the information that we need. There's still going to be additional investigation into what we've done to make sure that we've we've caught everybody that is part of this drug trafficking organization, and I get the ability to make sure that we're kind of dismantling that organization as we continue on.
So there could be more people that maybe haven't been identified yet.
That is a possibility, yes.
Possibility. Okay. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and
course.
explaining. I know this is quite complex, and obviously the impact of this goes far beyond Western Washington, so I appreciate you coming in and explaining what led to all this and the impact as well.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Talk about complex, right, Tyra?
Many layers, as you said, Steve. Good work.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people grateful for that this morning. Thank you.